Hey everybody, and welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus a little bit of insight into what it all means. Joining us as always is Jon Campea.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you from right here at the Collider Video headquarters here in Burbank, California. And I am saddened and disgusted by all of you who would not support me with my peeing in the bottle habits when it comes to video games. You all know you did it too, and all of you threw me under the bus.
Wow. Also
last
here,
week.
Jon Schnepp.
Yeah, you guys are hating on him about that bottle thing? When he said it, I thought it was gross.
Also here's Mark Ellis. Follow that up. All right.
Oh, hey, sorry. I was just doing something under the desk. Good to go.
Oh my
go.
gosh.
That was Mark Ellis's pee face, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. In a recent interview, Wreck-It Ralph star John C. Reilly revealed that work is being done on a Wreck-It Ralph 2 and that he has signed on to do the sequel as well. The 2012 film made over $470 million at the worldwide box office and was hailed by both critics and fans. John, is it time for another Wreck-It Ralph film?
No, it's past time. A new Wreck-It Ralph film, honestly, should have came out in 2015. Look, I'm not one of these guys where, oh, the movie's good, have another one out next year. No, I'm not one of those, but like 2 or 3 years later, because Wreck-It Ralph is not like a generations long property that like Star Trek or like Star Wars or like James Bond, where, hey, you can wait 5 or 6 years and everybody's still totally fresh up on your property. And it's not like 4 years is going to kill Wreck-It Ralph, but still, Wreck-It Ralph was such a pleasant surprise. I don't think there were many people who were expecting it to be as good and as entertaining as it really turned out to be, because it's just a wonderful film. Should have won the Academy Award for Best Animated Film that year, but I digress. It's just at this point, they're still talking about it, and John C. Reilly's just now saying, yeah, I'm signed up to do it, and there's movement happening. At this point, we're not going to get one until at the earliest 2017. And that's like a 5-year gap. So look, in the absence of having one already, yeah, it's time to get things moving on this. They should absolutely, I think every year they wait is a little bit of a missed opportunity. That's what I think anyway. Mark, what do you think?
Well, we've been whining on this show recently about how there just isn't a good video game adaptation since Mortal Kombat, but the movie that had a bunch of video game characters in it was awesome. Yeah. And so we definitely need another Wreck-It Ralph. And part of me wonders that maybe they haven't done another one yet, because whenever you do a sequel, you want to go bigger, you want to go badder, you want to have more characters in there, and some crucial video game characters that they didn't have the rights to yet when they made the first Wreck-It Ralph. Maybe they're trying to work on a deal to get some of the Marios in there, or Bomberman, or Lara Croft from Tomb Raider, or Earthworm Jim, or just more characters that we didn't get to meet in the first one. But yeah, it's past time to have one. I think that if it comes out in 2017, 2018, that'd be great. It's still going to be in the consciousness, because video games aren't going anywhere. You know, playing video games is only going to get better and better and better. So I think having these movies, especially the second one comes out and does well, that you'll start to see more Wreck-It Ralphs every 2 to 3 years.
Now, the rumor I'm hearing is that the direction they're looking at going in for the next Wreck-It Ralph is Wreck-It Ralph actually jumps into the online gaming and console gaming world.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Wow.
I hear at any rate. How much validity there is to that, I don't know, but that is a very interesting, because that opens up a whole new universe for Wreck-It Ralph. Anyway, Schnepp, what do you think?
I loved the first Wreck-It Ralph, and I was like one of those people who was like, I guess I'll go see it, and then blown away at how much fun it was. Plus, Q*bert was in it.
And Q*bert was good.
Q*bert was great. He's one of my favorite characters. Yeah, he's in Pixels, but I want him in Wreck-It Ralph 2, and like I want the Psychonauts and a whole bunch of other characters to be in Wreck-It Ralph 2. I think Wreck-It Ralph 2, hopefully they'll get it on the slates for 2017 and just make the announcement, stake out the dates, you know.
Do you guys remember that video game Burger Time?
Yes, I love Burger Time.
I want the Burger Time guy in that. That game was so awesome.
Yeah, you're like throwing pepper at the eggs are chasing you and like trying to make that sandwich, you know?
Absolutely. I want him in there. I don't know why, but I want him in there really bad. All right,
I need to Google Burger Time.
It's fantastic.
It's a great game.
Yeah. It's very tense too, like because you walk somewhat slow and it's like blook, 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 and like weird eggs are chasing you and like weird fries.
I don't like
stuff.
eggs.
And you're trying to accumulate a burger together.
Yeah, you're trying to make burgers. You got to run over the bun, then you got to run over the tomato. But
to make it drop into the burger.
Well, I can make burgers.
But the most satisfying thing is to crush your opponents under the weight of a giant biscuit bun or whatever. It's like you walk over it and you watch them get crushed as you make your burger.
Oh, the other thing about Wreck-It
Burger
Ralph
Time
2,
or Wreck-It Ralph?
Burger Time.
No, Burger Time. But the other thing about Wreck-It Ralph 2 is that the director has said that he really wants to have a key role for Mario. in it. But they, Nintendo's very tight-gripped on their property, so they've been having a hard time. So maybe we can get Mario and Luigi in there. That would be actually kind of cool. That would fit in well. All right, what's next?
A brand new trailer for the upcoming reboot Fantastic Four, which was originally shown at this past week's Comic-Con, has now hit the web. In the new trailer, we see more footage of Doom and a glimpse into the background of Dr. Reed Richards. Fantastic Four hits theaters on August 7th. Schnepp, what do you think of the new Fantastic Four trailer?
I really like this one a lot because it showed so much more of the storyline. Like in some of the other trailers, you'd see them in this negative zone world and they're like kind of falling into some kind of red flames. Now you see it as green flames, and now you also see Dr. Doom have this kind of crackled green like form. So you're sort of getting a little glimpse into the origin of how this new version of Dr. Doom gets his powers or whatever. It looks great to me. I really cannot wait to see this version of the Fantastic Four. I have high hopes for it. So the trailer does nothing but whet my appetite.
Yeah, I was in Hall H when the trailer debuted, and I liked it. You know who didn't like it that much was everybody else in Hall H. Now, they weren't booing it or anything. They cheered after they showed the trailer, but the entire Fantastic Four panel that we didn't touch on yesterday, it just felt a little flat from a fan perspective, and it made me question, like, why? Now, obviously, Deadpool followed that, and everybody went crazy, and then X-Men, everybody went crazy, but the kickoff of the Fox panel was Fantastic Four, and it just didn't seem like the fan fervor was quite there where I thought it should be yet, because the content that's been released from this movie is great, and this trailer is no different. I think the backstory with Reed Richards is awesome, and the way Doom looks, getting to see more of him, was great. It was, need I say, fantastic. So I'm looking forward to this movie. This movie has surprised me. Ever since I saw that first trailer, I'm like, I've never been a Fantastic Four guy. I never really cared that much about the comic books, but everything I've seen from this movie seems to be making the right play, and I really hope it pays off, because now I'm excited.
Yeah, I look, everybody knows I was very much poo-pooing the idea of Fantastic Four, especially the Fantastic Four babies. I didn't like that they went so young, all that kind of stuff. But I eventually got over that when I saw how good of a director they got, good of a screenwriter they got, the incredibly high caliber talent they got in all their actors. Mm-hmm. I liked the first trailer. The second trailer came out, I loved the second trailer. This trailer, I like. I like this trailer. I did not like it as much as last one, but you're right. I like the fact that they give us a little bit of the backstory into Reed Richards. I thought that kid was great. I thought that kid was in there was great.
The flying car.
How are you gonna do that? Already did. That was really cool. I like that they're giving us glimpses of Doom. And here's the other thing too. With Doom, I was having this discussion on Twitter with a couple of people. It's like, sometimes studios can't win. Because if you give them the Doom everybody's already seen before, people complain, why don't you do anything original? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's give a new incarnation of Doom. Let's give a different look at Doom. That's nothing like the Doom from the comic book. It's like, pick your poison, one or the other. They pick their poison to go, let's take a new take on this arch rival, on this arch villain. Let's take our own version of it and go with it. And I think it's going to work. I like what I've seen so far. Could be terrible. I didn't like this trailer as much as the last one, but it's still a positive one for me. I like what I see. And honestly, well, all the questions will be answered on August 7th.
Well, just imagine how excited we, and I think a lot of other people would be for this trailer if the other Fantastic Four franchises hadn't existed before.
Yeah.
This was the first time you saw them. So they really dug themselves a hole by just making bad movies before, in the same way that the Incredible Hulk had to overcome the previous incarnation of the Hulk. So I hope that people can just go in here with a fresh set of eyes. And I don't think I've seen all of any of the other Fantastic Four things. So I watched a little bit and I was like, I'm good.
You've seen enough.
I've seen enough. And I hope that this one can win fans over.
It often reminds me of, to bring a sports analogy in it, right? I remember listening, it's like, well, the last time the Boston Celtics were in a 3-1 deficit back in 1974, they lost 4 consecutive 3-1 games. Mm-hmm. It's like, what the hell does that have to do with the 2014 team? This is a completely different lineup of people that have nothing to do with that. And that a lot of people want to keep pointing back to the other 2 Fantastic Four films. This is a new director, new cast, new cameraman, new writer, new producers, new everything. Don't let anything good or bad, well, let's face it, there's nothing good about the original 2 Fantastic Four films, color what you think is going to make this Fantastic Four film. This Fantastic Four film will be great or be terrible based on its own merits, and it'll have nothing to do with the other 2 films. What were you about to say?
Oh, pretty much the same thing.
All right.
Yeah, I was about
you were going to make that Boston Celtics analogy?
Guys, as being a giant sports fan, I was going to say when the Cryhawks fight the Grimblegores and they're using the splatching device, never use a splatching device.
Well said. Well said. All right, folks, we reached that part of the show for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ashley's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down. And those of us at the table are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Ashley, what do we got?
As many of you know, Ubisoft has been in development of their video game to feature film adaptation of Splinter Cell. Deadline is now reporting that Mad Max star Tom Hardy is still indeed connected to play the lead character in the film Sam Fisher, a deadly special operative who carries out Black Op missions for the Special Operations and Counterterrorism Unit Echelon. Also, Ubisoft had just brought on screenwriter Frank John Hughes to write a brand new draft for the film following drafts turned in by Oscar-nominated writers Eric Warren Singer, American Hustle, and Sheldon Turner, Up in the Air, X-Men First Class. Mark, buy or sell that a Splinter Cell movie will actually happen?
I'm buying it, man. This is exciting now. It seems like we got a really good crew in place, and Splinter Cell, along with Halo, is the reason why I was a communications major instead of a doctor. Like, it just knocked me all the hours I dedicated playing Splinter Cell.
Because you were this close to being a doctor.
I was pre-med. I took a biology class. Didn't work out. We saw things differently. But Splinter Cell was awesome. I mean, the only Cell study I did was Splinter Cell. And playing Sam Fisher is just, it's a treat. I think it works so well as a big screen adaptation, whereas there's some other video games that they've chosen to make, and I'm like, well, I don't know how well that works, but this really is something that could pay off. Like, even if you took something like the Tomb Raider films that had a great premise, I think that was kind of like the female version of Sam Fisher, just going on these cool missions into somewhere else, into some deadly territory. There's always a lot of like shadowy stuff around, and you got to infiltrate something, and that could be a really neat role, especially for somebody like Tom Hardy. So if he's still on board, I'm on board. Even if Tom Hardy isn't ultimately going to be the one that plays Sam Fisher, with this team in place, this movie could be great.
What's interesting here is that Ubisoft is kind of pulling a Marvel. Like, they've created their own film division, and they're making their own films. Buy or sell whether this is going to happen? Right now, I'm going to say sell. But by an ever so small margin. Here's why. I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Assassin's Creed is also the Ubisoft thing. I think that's the first one Ubisoft's going out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is. And if that's the case, they still haven't started shooting that movie. We've been talking about that movie for like 2 or 3 years now, and they still have not even started shooting it. They're supposed to start shooting that in a couple of months, maybe in 4 or 5 months from now. They're supposed to start shooting. They've got Michael Fassbender, but they've had him for years. They've got a director on board, and they've had 2 Academy-nominated, Oscar-level writers, and now they've gotten rid of that script. They're bringing in a new script. They still say Tom Hardy's involved. Look, once they actually start shooting Assassin's Creed, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable that the Splinter Cell film will actually happen. But for now, by the narrowest margin, I'm going to give it a sell.
Simply because I'm a sweaty Splinter Cell. I've played all of them too. My favorite thing was getting the shocker, the shock the person. So much fun. The game is an incredible game series. If you've never played Splinter Cell, get on that. I want to see this done as a movie. I would love to see this as a film. Tom Hardy can be in it or not, but I think the mechanics of that game make up what could be a fantastic film. Like having to move through the shadows, having to do all these different kinds of missions. Any one of the missions from the 5 different Splinter Cell games could be a fantastic movie. So just for that alone, whether or not it actually happens, I have no idea, but I still buy the idea of them hiring a brand new writer, get at least 4 more drafts from different Oscar-winning people, and then throw them away, and then just get some unknown person, and that's the one you're going to probably go with. That's probably what will happen.
Headlines are going to run across the internet right now. Jon Schnepp says he loves getting the shocker. All right. What's next?
As many of you know, actress Jennifer Lawrence has stated that X-Men Apocalypse would be her final appearance as the mutant Mystique. However, in a recent interview, Lawrence revealed that there could still be a chance that she may return. She said the following: "I want them to ask me, and then I'm just going to see how I feel in the moment when they ask. It might not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but I feel like I'll know when they ask. If I get a pit in my stomach and feel like I'm going to throw up, I'll say no. And if I don't, I'll ask how much they want to pay me. I don't have everything nailed down like Fassbender." Apocalypse hits theaters on May 27, 2016. John, buy or sell that Jennifer Lawrence will return as Mystique after X-Men Apocalypse?
I totally buy that she will be back. I mean, look, with all these movie stars and artists and stuff like that, at the end of the day, they're like you and me. Acting is their job. And when, if you're an electrician, you get offered a $10 million contract to go and wire this new office building up the street. Yeah. I mean, the last time I worked on a $10 million job, it really exhausted me and I was really tired, but you get over that. And then the next thing comes, these will probably be the biggest films she ever does franchise-wise. Because remember, Hunger Games is about to end. X-Men films can go on forever if they really want them to. And I think her showing that little bit of crack in her armor right now, because remember when she said that she was going to be done with it, she was still in the exhaustion phase of having, in the middle of doing an X-Men film, and her going, look, this is heavy, this is a lot, I'm done. I say that at the end of every Comic-Con. No more. No mas. I'm exhausted. I'm done. And then by the time the next Comic-Con comes around, yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's go. And I think that'll be the case. So I buy that she will indeed be in another X-Men film.
I got to buy it too. I'm not as sold on it as you, I don't think, because I think that they could just try to wipe the slate clean for the most part. She is so young, though. She's only 24 years old, I think. So it's hard for me to imagine. Obviously, they're going to keep making more X-Men movies, and to have her as a marquee name when you might lose a Hugh Jackman, or even, she says, I don't know how many movies Michael Fassbender's actually locked down for. Obviously, him and McAvoy can age well in this franchise.
Yeah.
Mystique, it's not as crucial for Jennifer Lawrence to be playing her because one of her main powers is morphing into other people. Like, you could have Rebecca Romaine back in there, we wouldn't know for half the movie. But she's such a huge movie star. And I think a lot of times with movie stars that you want to go off and do other things. You're done with Hunger Games, which was a huge franchise, and you might be done with X-Men. That's a huge franchise. You want to do these other films. Like she's got so many things in pre and post production, like Passengers with Chris Pratt. Yeah. But that's not a franchise film. It doesn't sound like. Right. So every so often you need to do a franchise just to make sure that you're still the movie star that you were a couple years ago. Look at somebody like Vin Diesel, where he had that franchise with Fast and Furious and wanted to leave it and went somewhere else. And then it's like, man, I really kind of sucks being out here without a huge franchise. So we went back to Fast and Furious. It might be years before we see her. They might make an X-Men movie without her, and then she comes back. But it's hard for me to believe that she's never going to be in another X-Men flick.
Schnepp, are we going to see Jennifer Lawrence back in more X-Men?
I think so. I mean, when she said it was her last role, I believed her. It's like, look, she's not going to sign on to do another contract. But since she's saying this and opening that door, hell yeah. I mean, she was a really important part of the last two X-Men films, and she was an integral part to Days of Future Past, and it sounds like she's the main character once again in Apocalypse, where she'll be leading, either the pros or cons. We don't know what it's going to be, but I think her character has developed so much in this X-Men series, and she's a really core important part of the filmography of the X-Men. So I would love to see her continue, and she's a great actress. So why wouldn't she? You're right. That it's every once in a while to get like a really great, like Hugh Jackman. He's been Wolverine for all these times. It's that kind of legacy that someone's like, look, I can pop in every 2 years, 3 years, do this role, and then keep my, my cred as being like this box office bonanza, and then I can take more experimental roles in smaller films and not feel that, that pain. So.
All right, what's next?
With the departure of J.J. Abrams from the Star Trek franchise, many have speculated about who would take over for Michael Giacchino in composing the score for the new film Star Trek Beyond, which is scheduled to hit theaters next July. Well, in a recent tweet, Giacchino has revealed that he is actually coming back to score the new film himself. He said the following: "So thrilled to be working with Justin Lin and the rest of the Enterprise crew on Star Trek Beyond. Let's boldly go. Schnepp, buy or sell Michael Giacchino returning for the new Star Trek?"
Yeah, I return like we were talking about it before the show, and just familiarizing myself with all of his other scores. He's done incredible amounts of amazing scores for all these great films that he did almost all of J.J. Abrams' films, all of them, right? So I would imagine that, because Star Wars has somebody named John Williams, that there's not that much room for him. So maybe on JJ's next movie that's not Star Wars related, he'll return. But it seems like it's a perfect fit and natural for him to continue with the next Star Trek. So
yeah, I'm going to buy it mostly because you're bringing in a new director, but to make it truly feel like the same franchise, I think the score has amazing amounts of power to make you feel at home. And having this, being consistent with who your composer is, I think that's really key. I didn't think he would be back to do Star Trek once JJ bolted. And I still think he's the heir apparent to the Star Wars films. I do think he will be the heir apparent, because let's face it, John Williams is not going to be doing this thing for a lot longer. So I think he'll be the heir apparent at some point for Star Wars, but I think this is good for Star Trek. I think this is good for him. I think it'll make the audience feel more at home. So for me, it's a buy.
And you need that when you have new flavors coming into an established franchise. Look at Jurassic World. I mean, part of the fun of that movie was hearing his ability to take an old score and give us that flair, but also put some new stamps on it. So this guy is, a musician hasn't been as important to Hollywood since Kenny Loggins in the mid-'80s was required to do every soundtrack for every movie. I'm glad this guy's back on Star Trek because he knocked the first two out of the park, and he's just one of those guys that you call and you're like, hey, we need you to do this now. He's such a prolific dude. He works on so many movies, but he's really good at not being the star when he doesn't have to be, but when he needs to be and you need to accentuate a scene, he's one of the best in the business.
All right, folks, we reached that part of the show for Mailbag. And Mailbag today is being brought to you by our good friends at AMC Theaters. AMC Amazing. So what's in the mailbag today, Ashley?
Brian Sosin writes, I've been watching since well before the MOS review. Jane Got a Gun allegedly opened September 4th, its 5th release date after horrible production issues. Black Mass opens 2 weeks later, and we've seen 2 trailers from that. Is Relativity just going to dump this in theaters, or is it going to get moved again? VOD maybe?
I think they're going to. I don't think there's a danger right now of them not releasing this film. I mean, who knows? Anything can happen. You're right. There has been so much drama. Not just all the famous pre-production stuff, but now with like the scheduling and the release dates and all that kind of stuff. But I still do believe it's coming out. Now, yes, Black Mass has had 2 trailers and things like that, but let's not forget. Let's go back to the example of John Wick. John Wick released its first trailer like 28 days before the movie came out. Its first trailer came out 28 days before it came out. So you just got to start weighing, is there going to be a lot of benefit for us releasing trailers to this movie this far in advance, or this far in advance, or this far in advance? And at this point, I choose to believe, and it could be way wrong, but I choose to believe they just feel that the best marketing strategy for them is a compact, heavy push within like 6-7 weeks of when the movie's coming out. So I'm not really worried about the fact that we haven't seen any trailers yet. I think trailers will drop when they're ready to drop them. So I don't think there's any reason to be worried, but yeah, there is a little bit of smoke there. Schnepp, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't worry that much about it. I mean, you have giant tentpole movies. Those are the ones that drop the trailer 2 years before the movie comes out. Then another, there's the teaser trailer, then the trailer, then the second trailer, then a series of commercials. This is a smaller film, when you look at the scope of like giant tentpole films. So yeah, it makes total sense. Maybe 2 months before the film comes out, they release a trailer on all, online and in different select theaters. I don't think this is going to be a giant, it's not going to be in 3,000 screens either. So, you have to look at it like it all costs money, these marketing pushes. So they have to, 8 weeks, let's put out that trailer. Let's put all our money in that marketing push. And maybe that's what they're going to do. So.
Yeah, there's no worse death knell for a movie than when you already have a trailer out and then you have to push the movie back again. So everything I've heard about this movie is that it is really good, but them and the studio and some other teams are having a problem deciding how they want to end the movie, how dark or how happy to go with it. And that's like, you can't release the movie until you know the ending, unless you want to make it a choose your own adventure style. So I don't know why the other 4 times it got pushed back were. I don't know if they were all just concerned about how do we end this film. I think once it comes out, it's going to be pretty good. I've heard Natalie Portman is amazing in it. So when it does finally get released, I think it's going to be worth the wait, hopefully. But man, it's been a long wait. It's been like years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. All right, Ashley, what's next?
Derek F. Walker Jr. writes, Afternoon, guys and gals. I was wondering, are you guys aware of any new Nolan projects in the works?
I myself am not aware of any new Nolan projects in the works. And I don't know if this is because he is still working on something and isn't ready to tell everybody about it. I don't know if this is him just wanting to take a step back from Interstellar, because to me, Interstellar, while I still think a good movie that I enjoyed, I think it's a thumbs up movie. But at the same time, I think it might be like my second least favorite of his. I was a little bit underwhelmed because I went in like a lot of people with Interstellar wanting 10s. I was expecting 10s across the board. And when you don't get what you were expecting, you leave feeling a little bit disappointed. Even if it's like a solid 7 or a solid 8, you still walk out feeling a little disappointed. And that was kind of my reaction to Interstellar. Still really like it. I give it a thumbs up. I tell people to go and see it, but at the same time, it's not what I wanted it to be and felt like a little bit not up to that Christopher Nolan standard. But when you look at that movie, that must have been such an exhausting movie to forget just shooting. The development of that movie seems like it would have been completely exhausting. Shooting it, when you watch all the features on it, how they made that movie, totally exhausting. The release of that movie was totally exhausting. And I think for the first time in his career, other than some minor backlash from people like me or Schnepp, whatever, regarding the Dark Knight Returns or
Dark
whatever.
Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises, thank you. This was the first film that he actually had to sit back and read some people kind of attacking his film. And so maybe that's caused him to just want to take a pause and step back for a second, take a deep breath, be really sure about his next movie, because Christopher Nolan is not just a good director. Christopher Nolan is a great director with the potential to be amongst the greatest of all times by the time his career is done. And that's, I think, the level of excellence he shoots for. He doesn't shoot for good. He shoots for people are going to be talking about my movie for decades. And I think maybe Interstellar has caused him to step back, reevaluate what he wants his next project to be, and then move forward. Whatever he comes out with next, though, I'm going to be super stoked about it. Anyway, Schnepp, what do you think?
Well, I agree. I think there's no real rush, and people forget he's also a writer as well as a director.
Yes.
So he needs time to, like, even though Interstellar came out like about 8 or 9 months ago, he's doing all the press junkets. He's like, there's no off time ever until a few months after your movie is out, because you're still, even your movie's out, you're doing interviews, this and that. So then he needs time to sit back. What am I going to do next? And more importantly, what am I going to write next? So maybe he didn't have something. Maybe he exhausted his script pack that I've got these 5 scripts just waiting to get made. And then he made them all. So now he's on to a couple rough ideas. That could take 6 months to a year before he feels like, all right, this is the movie I'm going to make. So that's the role of someone creative when they're doing writing and directing. They have to give themselves the time to not rush something out, but be 100% positive that's what they want to commit themselves, as well as a studio and all the people who are going to make that film to be the next film. So I'm sure he's writing the next Christopher Nolan film right now. So.
Right. Well, and no one on this panel, unless Ashley has a great poker face, knows what Christopher Nolan's next project is going to be. However, Christopher Nolan knows, because last month he mentioned that he had finished a draft of what his next project is going to be. Cool. So we don't know what that is. He hasn't told anybody, which I love. But you keep it secret. Now, whether that is going back to the Interstellar universe, which I'd be like, all right, cool. There's so many stories to tell in that world. The Inception universe, which I think would be awesome, or he wants to step back and do something smaller. It's hard to go bigger than Interstellar. It really is. I have a gut feeling, and my gut's wrong most of the time, that he's going to do something smaller. You're going to see something like Memento or The Prestige and take a step back from the huge event movie that's ever been, and then do something tinier, and then go back to making a giant blockbuster. Because like you said, this guy's going to be in the game until the day he kicks the bucket, and by the time that happens, he could be mentioned as one of the all-time greats. Somebody like Spielberg, who is an all-time great, does huge movies, and then he also does smaller movies as well. I think that's what you're going to get with the next Nolan project. Now, as soon as this goes live, he'll probably announce that he's doing
by the time this goes up,
Justice League versus Marvel. What?
I guarantee you right now. I will guarantee you right now. His next project, he's been approached by Sony, is Pixels 2. He's writing the follow-up to Pixels as we speak.
Right.
He's just waiting for Wreck-It Ralph to get the rights to Mario before he sends him the script.
All right, what's next?
Chris D. Onofrio writes, so apparently Warner Brothers and Fox are threatening to stop showing footage at Comic-Con because of the Suicide Squad and Deadpool leaks. Why? We were given Star Wars and Batman vs. Superman footage, and those were easily the most anticipated. More important trailers have been leaked in the past with less harsh threats from studios at a time when they weren't releasing anything from SDCC online. Why such a hostile response now?
Well, first of all, I should point out that I have not heard the studios directly say that. I know that's a report going around, but I haven't heard them say that. But let's go for the assumption for a second that is indeed what Warner Brothers and Fox are threatening, that, we're just not going to show anything there anymore. This won't be the popular thing to say, but I don't care. This is the truth. They would have every right to feel that way. You go, now some who say, well, you should just know if you're going to show something in Hall H at Comic-Con, it's going to leak out. That's not a good excuse. That's not a good excuse. There is this sense of trust that Warner Brothers puts in Comic-Con and in the fans at Comic-Con. They say, hey, we're going to show you something, but we ask, put your phones away. Don't record this and put this online. And then, I'm sorry, you're a jackhole then if you pull out your phone and record it and put it online. There was a trust there. They asked you, they said, we're going to show you this. Something for the fans, just for you guys here at Comic-Con. All we ask is, put your phones away, and some guy thinks he's being a hero. Oh, look how smart I am, because I'm going to stick it to the man. I'm going to take out my phone. Now, there is a level, let me say this right up front. There is a level of hypocrisy here for people like me to say that Well, I'll be one of the first people to watch it once it goes online. I'm not denying that. There's a level of hypocrisy there. Absolutely. But when I'm sitting in that, I had no contract with WB not to watch it if it gets put online. But if I'm sitting in that room, I have an implied contract with WB that says, hey, you're showing this to me and I won't be a jackhole and record it and put it out online when you don't want us to. I'm going to keep my phone in my pocket and I'm not going to take out my camera and shoot it. And I really wish people wouldn't do that. There's a sense of entitlement that we as fans have. I'm guilty of it. You guys are guilty of it. You guys are guilty. We all are, I admit. But we have to take control of that sense of entitlement to think that, no, you Stews, you owe this to us. We have the right to take what you don't want us to take, and we have the right to do with it whatever we want to do. And I think we just need to grow up a little bit and not do that. So if they did say this, I wouldn't blame them. Like if a studio thinks, okay, for Comic-Con, for the fans there who line up and like it's so important to them that they book time off work and they travel to San Diego, fine. For those folks, we want something special for them. We're going to show it to them. Even though we don't want to show this to the public yet, we'll show it to you guys at Comic-Con. And now they have to worry about, well, let's not show anything at Comic-Con that we're not ready to go public. And I think fans at Comic-Con are going to suffer for this. And it's really too bad. I don't know. I'm probably overreacting. Anyway, Schnepp, how do you feel about it?
I don't think you're overreacting. I agree with a lot of your points, but I'll say this, as having gone to San Diego Comic-Con specifically since like 1997 and only missing 2 of them, I've seen that convention grow to the mass crazy, like where you can barely walk, just insanity that it is now. And Hall H has always been giant, but it was never 100% filled except for 1 or 2 panels. There weren't those crazy lines. There was like, oh, the panel that you've got to see. And then there was always room for other people to go see things. I think there was a mutual respect thing. But one thing that happened in between that period of time and now is what we all live in, the internet, which really exploded broadband, the ability to walk around with a digital phone and just watch stuff. And I mean, all those things are now just a norm. And so with that comes, I think, an added responsibility to all of the studios, which wasn't there, say, even 10 years ago, which when you bring something to San Diego Comic-Con to, throw it down and be like, hey, this is for the fans. Granted, those fans who are seeing it in Hall H are going to see it for the first time. But honestly, when you have 7,000 people in there is always going to be that one jackhole. And we're going to watch that jackhole's video. That's how I saw the Suicide Squad trailer, because I didn't even have time to stay in line. I was there, but I was like running a booth. So I couldn't possibly get into Hall H. So I appreciate that one jerk who put it online. I'm like, thank you, because even though I'm watching a weird trapezoidal, mishy-mashy screen with bad sound, that's something that I saw that trailer and I was like, wow, I cannot wait to see that movie. And guess what? It's completely free advertising for every single studio that brings their movie or whatever that is that they're bringing there. I don't want to hear their excuse. It wasn't ready. If it wasn't ready, don't show it to anybody. If you're bringing it to show it to 6,000 fans, imagine all the millions of other fans who desperately want to see that. Drop it like all these other studios did the next day and don't complain about it like some babies.
I disagree with you, because what's the alternative now? Like,
there's no alternative.
If I'm Warner Brothers now, it's like, oh, so if I'm not ready to show this to the whole world, then I can't show it to Comic-Con?
No, you should.
Okay, then we're not showing it.
What you should do then, if you were Warner Brothers and say you drop some footage like Batman v Superman, you immediately put it online the very next like 3 hours, which is what they did. That's the proper thing that they did with Batman v Superman. Everyone at Hall H got to see that like 5 hours or 4 hours before the whole world did. And that's the cool exclusive. You get to see it first. We're going to release it later. That Suicide Squad trailer is great. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's not like unfinished weird things. There's not a weird cardboard box moving across screen. Every shot's done. It's music. Everything's there. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like that complaint about we weren't ready and like blaming the internet. It's like, sorry, I'm not going to buy it. They showed it to 6,000 fans. They should have expected it. It's going to get leaked. What they should have been ready to do is just put it online, because that way they would have gotten the next 24 million people watching it. They put it online. Everybody exploded and loved the trailer. I'm just saying, it's like, if you're going to bring something to a gigantic mass hall like Hall H, 6,000 people, you could do a very much more controlled screening if you wanted to, and like hand out wristbands and like, we've rented out this 300 seater. It's a super exclusive. Leave your cell phones here. So if you really cared that much about it and didn't want to sound like crying babies, you would have went that next step instead of like slapping your fans on the wrists. That's what it looks like.
I mean, like, I still disagree because I think what we're doing now is putting the studios in a position where they have to go, okay, we have this Suicide Squad trailer, and because of our marketing strategy, the best time for us to drop this trailer is in 3 months. But the fans at Comic-Con really want to see it. Now, what we've done is we've backed the studios into a corner where they're going to say, okay, so from now on, we can't bring anything to Comic-Con that we're not ready for the world to see now. So no more exclusives for people at Comic-Con, because now we know that if we bring something there, we have to put it out to the world right away. And if we're not ready, or we don't think it fits into our marketing plan to put it out right now, then no footage for you at Comic-Con. And that's what I fear. Like, I fear that happening. I think you're absolutely right, though, when you point out there is that element that you should expect when you play something in front of 7,000 people, that something will slip out. Obviously, Warner Brothers was prepared for that, so they said, okay, it got out, put out the full trailer with Suicide Squad. Obviously, Fox was prepared for that, okay, it got out, put out the full thing for Fox. But obviously,
Deadpool, they said, look, we're going to put it out in 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yes.
Which is great.
So now what I fear is that the fans at Comic-Con are going to suffer in the future because studios will now know we can't bring anything to Comic-Con that we're not ready to put out to the world right now.
I just disagree with you. I think the fear thing it shouldn't be there. It's like, hey, look, they should be ready for the fans to accept it. They should be ready for the fans to see it. They should change their marketing plans if they haven't already and adjust to the giant monster that San Diego Comic-Con is, and just, hey, this is our marketing plan now. We're going to get all those people. It's free advertising. Don't be stupid and be weird. Our marketing plan for 3 months, shut up. I don't believe it.
So you think your marketing plan should be completely circled around the 6,000 people are going to be at Comic-Con?
It's not the 6,000. It's not the 6,000 people. It's the people leaking it.
Well, yeah, and that's true,
that
too.
Won't stop.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the 6,000 people who saw it exclusively. That could be 6,000, or it could be 300, or it could be one person. That's how it works.
This is the other thing I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of that when you go to a really big film's advanced screening here in Hollywood, right? Like when we get invited to go to some big things. What will happen at a lot of them, a lot of the ones that they're really, really uptight about having leaked out, when you go into the theater, they take your cell phones from you. You have to check your phone. So you give them your cell phone. They put it into a Ziploc bag with a number, and they give you another ticket that has that same number, and you have to check in your phone. And then it's a bit of a nightmare when you come out of those things to get your phones back. Yeah. I'm afraid of that happening at Hall H in the future, where it's like, hey, come on in, folks, but you cannot have your phone because people will pirate it. So we want to take it. I'm so afraid of that happening. I hope it doesn't. Now,
that would be insanity.
Schnepp thinks one way. I think a different way on it. Mark,
I'm the kid in the back seat watching mom and dad fight. Like, where are we going for dinner? I don't know. I just want to get to grandma's house. I have a lot of opinions on this issue as well. But like, one of the things that I'll say right off the bat is that when you go to San Diego, the fervor that is Comic-Con, Hall H is an exclusive nightclub. I don't care if it's 6,000 people in here. Anywhere else in the world, that would be a 300-seater. So there should be added security to make sure nobody has their phones out, but it's impossible to do in this day and age. The way that buzz is created now is a lot different than it was even 5-10 years ago. Hall H was the way you create buzz for studios because nobody really worried about having a phone and doing this. Now you can do that all the time, and it's so hard to monitor that. Now, from a consumer, I'm going to turn into a frosted mini wheat real quick, okay? Because the consumer side of me and the artist side of me have very different opinions on this. The consumer side of me sees something like Deadpool or Suicide Squad get leaked and is like, that is actually great advertisement for that movie, because it's not like it's getting leaked from an editing bay. It's getting leaked from a hall with 6,000 fans going crazy. So at home, you're watching that, and it's like when you're watching a sitcom. Maybe you didn't think that joke was that funny. There's a studio audience there laughing, so you give it the credibility of being, oh yeah, I guess that was kind of a good joke. Same thing in Hall H. You see fans loving something, you are going to be more inclined to love it, so it does help the studio. Now, the artist side of me feels differently, and I know Schnepp would feel the same way too. If your movie wasn't quite finished, but you wanted to show it to a few of your buddies, and one of them took out their cell phone and put it on the internet before you were ready to see it, or if I was doing a set somewhere and I'm working out new material and somebody gets footage of that and puts it online before I can put it on TV, that's a horrific experience as an artist, because now it's like, no, part of it is a surprise, is you not knowing that this is coming. It's impossible to do somewhere as big as Hall H. And what a franchise like Star Wars can do is say, hey, we don't need to worry about showing it to a group of people. We can put it online the day after Thanksgiving and break the internet. So I think that's what studios are going to start doing more so. However, there's enough movies and enough studios competing for prime time in Hall H where you're always going to get an exciting trailer. So if we weren't going crazy about Deadpool or Suicide Squad, we'd be going crazy about the Hunger Games trailer that nobody else got to see yet. So there's always going to be exciting content to show in Hall H. I hope that studios keep bringing their really cool stuff, but in the future, I just don't think they might turn into Marvel. What Marvel did this past year is like, hey, we're not even going to bring footage because maybe we have some Civil War stuff. We just can't show it yet, or we don't feel comfortable showing yet, so we're not going to bring it. That's the fear that I have because it's really exciting being in Hall H, but that's the way the world is going. So it's hard to be the artist and the consumer at the same time.
But I think Marvel not showing it is for completely different reasons, completely political reasons. They're going to just show that footage at like D23 or whatever.
In a more controlled environment that they control.
Sure.
And so it's kind of the same thing.
But honestly, I don't fear that. I think it's like, look, if you're going to bring something to the table, like it's like MegaCon, it's like SuperCon, whatever, it's not even Comic-Con anymore. It's like everything con, it's everything, the kitchen sink con. It's like everybody's there. So it's like
kitchen sink con is actually Home Depot.
Yeah, definitely. Go there guys, might as well start up kitchen sink con. That sounds pretty awesome. But
are you guys ready for the Jet Spray 3000?
I used to love those exclusive previews that then you would come back and be like, my God, I saw this amazing stuff. That's not the world we live in now. That's all I'm saying. And I think studios should be prepared for that and not slap the hand of the fans that it's just going to get talked about. It's going to get spread around. That's our culture now, our phone culture. You can't get mad at everybody. It's like, look, you accept it and bring it into your marketing plan because it works. Look at the numbers of every single one of those leaked trailers. And then when they leak, the leaked ones don't even have the numbers that the actual real one. When they finally were like, look, we're going to put the Suicide Squad up. Bam, like 15,
but it would have
had
had those numbers that they released it in 3 weeks. But I think ultimately we agree on a bunch of the key points here.
Sure.
Because what we're actually talking about are several different issues. If we just bring it down to the issue of, okay, if the studio is going to show you footage in Hall H and they ask you, please do not take out your phone and record this, we all agree you should not take out your phone and record this.
Enjoy watching it.
Right.
Yeah.
If a studio does bring their stuff and show it, they should be prepared that it may very well, and there's a high probability that it will leak. I think we all agree on that. And I think we all also agree that then if you're a studio, don't bring something to Comic-Con unless you are indeed ready for the world to see it and you want the world to see it and you don't have a big problem with the world seeing it right now. I think we all agree on that as well.
Yep.
And I think we also all agree that there is, you may not on this, there's a bit of a fear then that like Marvel, like maybe some others, that Warner Brothers or Fox, that these guys at this point may go, okay, we're not going to bring the super cool stuff anymore. And I'm worried about that. I'm just a little bit worried about it. Whether they should or shouldn't think that way, that's another issue too. But I'm a little bit worried about those things.
We might have all overreacted to this just a little bit anyway, because this is the file from Comic-Con. It's the same thing when Halloween night, you get a bunch of candy and your parents say, don't eat all that candy, you're going to get sick. The next day, you eat all the candy, you get sick, and your parents yell at you. What's going to happen next year? Well, same thing. You're going to go trick-or-treat, you're going to get your candy, and you're going to eat too much of it again.
Yeah, I was going to say you don't eat all of it because there might be a razor blade in one of them. It's like
because that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that will do it for us for this installment of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, listen, don't forget, lots of great movies right now playing over at AMC Theaters. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all of your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. The most important part of this show is really not what we have to say up here either, folks. It's what do you have to say? Jump into the comment section below and bring up some points that maybe, whether it's about this Comic-Con thing, what are some things that all three of us missed or that all three of us forgot to mention? What are some things, how do you perceive this or any of the issues that we talked about today? We want to hear your input. Also, don't forget, guys, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I want to thank the guys sitting at this table right now. First of all, sitting over here, Mr. Jon Schnepp. Schnepp, where can people find you online? And where can they find that now available for purchase and viewing, The Death of Superman Lives? What happened?
Oh, well, thank you so much. We premiered it at San Diego Comic-Con. Thank you, Jack Hole, for touring it. And you can get it at TDOSLWH.com. You can get it right now. You can get a Blu-ray, a DVD, or a digital download. You can buy it right now. It's available. You can watch it. You can just click it and watch it right now. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, just at Jon Schnepp and at TDOSLWH. Thanks, guys.
Sitting over here, Mr. Mark Ellis. Mark, where can people find you?
For a full pirated version of The Death of Superman Lives, what happened? No, you can follow me on Twitter, and I'd love to have a debate with you guys about all this stuff on Twitter and Instagram at 5150Ellis. Fall tour dates being announced this Friday.
And of course, our lovely host today, Miss Ashley Mova. Ashley, where can people find you?
On Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. Happy Tuesday, guys.
And you can follow me on all the various social media networks on Facebook or on Twitter at Jon Campea. And don't forget, guys, follow Collider Video also on Twitter, just at Collider Video, and follow us on Instagram as well at Collider Video. I want to thank the guys in the room, Dennis running the show, Wendy Lee, Ray Ora back there putting all the graphics together, and thank you to you guys for joining us today. My name's Jon Campea for Collider Video. Until next time, bye-bye.